Massive game coming up in the Premier League this weekend. Liverpool taking on Manchester United. Liverpool with those 3 straight losses in all competitions behind them. Manchester United looking to make it back-to-back wins in the Premier League for the first time under Ruben Amorim. Just taking a look at the tail of the tape this season. It's not quite the magnitude maybe it once was between these two sides, with Liverpool in second and Manchester United in 10th right now. However, Liverpool's record behind them not so favourable as it stands, as we welcome in Mark Ogden to talk more about this. Stewart Robson still with us. Let me start with you though, Craig. Who needs to win more, Liverpool or Manchester United?
Well, bearing in mind, we've had that ridiculous statement from Sir Jim Ratcliffe about 3 years, to give Ruben Amorim. They got the win against Sunderland. There's hardly anything really to embolden you, but it was a win. And I think most observers would expect, albeit Liverpool have sort of flattered to deceive for the bulk of this season, I think most observers would expect Liverpool to win. So I think in that sense, barring an absolute pasting, Ruben Amorim can sort of probably wave this one off. I think the bigger of the two, I think the one that needs to win more is Arne Slot. I think there's a lot of questions there. There's a lot of questions about their performances. It would be 4 defeats in a row. It would be a defeat at Anfield. It would be a defeat by a very bad Man United side. And it would just bring up more questions. We don't know what the lineup is going to be for Arne Slot. Does Florian Wirtz play? Does Szoboszlai play right back? I don't think that will happen, but we've seen it before. Does Ekitike play, or is he benched again and Alexander Isak plays? Because that's been a topic of discussion, because Isak is chasing his fitness, and Ekitike, up to his stupid booking, where he missed the Palace game, has been arguably their best player, their most influential player, their most dangerous player. So as we sit here now, we don't know the conundrum or the team selection from Arne Slot, which could have obviously has got a big effect on the game. But what we do know, certainly in my opinion, is that he needs to win this game more, because, as I said, 4 defeats and the manner of which this game has come around off the international break, they need to find some momentum. They need to find some balance in their team. They need to get their bigger players, their Gravenberg, their McAllister, all these guys playing well again. Konaté struggled at the back. The back 4 has struggled. Kerkez has struggled. We've talked about Stevie and I haven't talked about bringing Andy Robertson back in, but if you watched Andy Robertson play for Scotland, you wouldn't bring him back in because he struggled there. So there are so many questions from this Liverpool side, that I think it's a big, big, big game for Arne Slot.
We had a similar conversation yesterday. I thought, in terms of pressure on the respective managers, Amorim is under a whole lot more pressure going into this one, and a bad result is... Arne Slot has equity in the bank, given what you saw last season.
But Ruben Amorim can't be fired.
Right.
Well, no, not that he can't. So Jim Ratcliffe could not come out. Right.
Not that Slot is going to get fired either. In terms of managers, I think Amorim is under more pressure. In terms of teams, I feel this is a must-win, or more of a must-win for Liverpool. Given what you've seen from Arsenal, given what you see from City, even though we've been fairly critical, and City haven't played well at times, but they're 3 points off the top. So there isn't a whole lot of wiggle room. And you're coming into this one, 3 losses on the bounce. You're at Anfield against your rivals, Manchester United, albeit not the Manchester United of old. I think this is a big game for Liverpool from that regard, to again announce that they're here to stay, certainly in this title race to the end of the season.
Okay, are the guys right that Amorim doesn't need to win this as much as Slot does?
No, listen, I think when Man United play Liverpool, both managers need it just as much for different reasons. And I think in this case, you can make a case for Arne Slot needing the win. 3 straight defeats, lose to Man United, that would be a big loss. And obviously with Arsenal going so well at the top, you'd think they'd lose touch. But at least if Liverpool do lose, they're going to bounce back and they're going to finish easily top 3. So their crisis is kind of small-scale crisis if it comes to that. I think if United lose, then we're back into the kind of will he stay, will he go situation. And I know that Sir Jim Ratcliffe said last week that he needs 3 years and that he's a great coach. But when he said that, I took a step back at last year when Jim Ratcliffe said about Eric Ten Hag that he's a very good coach, and then 3 weeks later he sacked him. So, you can't really put too much store on what Sir Jim Ratcliffe says, because it will be decided by results. So if Ruben Amorim goes to Anfield and loses, then the pressure's back on, because the situation United right now is this season they've beaten 2 promoted teams and they're beating Chelsea, who had 10 men for virtually the whole of the game. They've lost to Grimsby in the Carabao Cup. So the last away win was Leicester in the Premier League in March, and Leicester were relegated by a million miles. So you can't really look at anything United have done this season to say that they are improving, despite what people at United will try and say that the stats point to this, the stats point to that. Well, the league table says that they're not doing very well. So if they go to Anfield and get the usual result at Anfield, which is a big defeat, yes, they drew there last season, but it tends to be a defeat in recent seasons, then the pressure's back on, because people are saying, oh, well, they've got Brighton coming up and Nottingham Forest coming up and Tottenham coming up, as if those are games that they'll win. Well, they lost at home to Brighton last season, they lost at Forest, and I think they lost to Spurs 3 times. So there's no game coming up for Man United that you can say, well, get the Liverpool game out of the way and it'll be a lot easier. So Amorim has to win just as much as Slot.
Let's go back to the Florian Wirtz question, if we can, Stuart, and whether Arne Slot should start him in this game. He dropped him before the international break. Liverpool still lose anyway. What should he do here? Who should he play?
Well, obviously, Florian Wirtz has been a great player at Bayer Leverkusen. He hasn't done it for Liverpool so far. It depends whether Arne Slot wants a solid midfield three that can get forward and drop in at the right times, whether he can get more out of the wide right player. But if you've bought a player for that amount of money, you've got to give him some sort of time to settle in, to find his feet. And this might be the right game to do it against Manchester United, who Mark Ogden has just said aren't a particularly good side at the moment. They're inconsistent. I don't think they're very good defensively at times. So Florian Wirtz, at some point, if you've spent that amount of money on a player, you've got to put him in the team and try and get him to find his feet, because he is a good player. He's just got to find the right little pockets of space to do his work. At the moment, it's not working out for Liverpool all around, and a lot of the new signings haven't played well enough. This is the sort of time it's got to change after the international break. These new players have to start showing how good they are.
Manchester United, you could argue, have one of the worst midfields at protecting a back four. Or a back three, whatever you want to talk about. A back line. One of the worst. They have no mobility. They have lots of experience, but they have no mobility in there. Casemiro can't do it anymore. Certainly can't do it on his own. Agate's been hopeless. And it's not Bruno Fernandes's sort of natural job to try and do that. So from that perspective, I think this is an opportune time at home to get Florian Wirtz off and running. Because he's not. Rob said he has not. He has not played well. And it does take time sometimes to come into a new team. But if they could ignite him at home against one of their biggest rivals historically, against a team that is weak in that position, against a team that he's probably going to get some space in to operate, which is what he wants, and then it's up to him to go and deliver. I think this is the perfect opportunity to build his confidence, to get on the ball, to create things, to make things happen, to get the Liverpool crowd going, wow, this is the player that we thought we were going to get. This is the Florian Wirtz from Germany. This is the guy that is this huge transfer fee. And I think at some point he's going to have to do that, Arne Slot. And I think this is the perfect opportunity, because I think it fits the bill, because United are very weak in that area. Whether he will do it or not, I had this conversation with Stevie. He doesn't think Florian Wirtz will play. Rob, the boys have touched on a more solid three in midfield. I don't know. But at some point, you got to put your money where your mouth is and say, look, this is the guy. We need to get him in that 10 role. We need to get him operating. And there are fewer teams, if any, in the Premier League that are going to allow you a lot of space in that area. And so I think it fits the bill to get him into the team.
And let's talk about team news for Liverpool, continuing on this conversation, if we can, Mark. And the injury list here. What's the situation with Konaté?
It's a doubt, isn't he? He's a guy that might struggle, and obviously when Konaté's not fit, then they have got a problem, because they haven't got an abundance of centre-halves, having missed out on Mark Gray. So they really need Konaté to be fit. I think it's 50-50, maybe even less than that. So Liverpool have got a problem. So what do? Do they bring in Joe Gomez, who we know can do a job, but is he ever going to be fit? He might be fit for 60 minutes. So Liverpool have got a problem at centre-half, and the one area where United are better than last season, I think, is up front. I think Sesko's beginning to settle down a little bit. He offers more of a threat in the sense that he can hold the ball up, he can flick it on, and Boom moves around a bit. Cunha's looked lively without scoring a goal. So Liverpool would need a reliable centre-half against United if United ever get out of their own half to give the ball to the forwards. But I think Liverpool, that is their position of weakness. So Yeah, it's a struggle for Konaté to be fit, but I think that they've got Gomez to come in if needed. But, you know, Gomez is a good player at times, but his injury record has also let him down in the past.
Can that offer some hope then, Robbo, to Manchester United, knowing these defensive issues for Liverpool?
Yeah, because they haven't defended well this season, even with Konaté in the side. He's made the mistakes. Van Dijk hasn't always read the danger particularly well. The two fullbacks have struggled, whoever those fullbacks have been. So there is space to create against Liverpool at the moment. And as Mark said, Sesko is starting to show that he's got some ability. I thought it's taken him a little bit of time to get going. And Burmo, I think, has been excellent. He's got that little bit of pace. I think he's found the right position, or that sort of inside right position. And Cunha, we know, has got talent. So if those three players can get the ball into those three players with any sort of quality, they will cause one or two problems. But as Craig said, can that midfield of Manchester United, the wing-backs of Manchester United, get the ball into that front three with enough quality? I'm not sure they can, and that's why Liverpool should dominate the game, and why the front players for Liverpool should be the most demonstrative players on the pitch.
Let's talk a little bit about Mason Mount. It's the latest subject of Rob Dawson's article over on ESPN.com. Obviously, we saw an improved version of Mason Mount last time out against Sunderland for Manchester United. Yes, it was against Sunderland, but it was an improved showing from them. How to kick on and build on that for the players and the team?
I think he just needs to stay injury-free. It just seemed that United chased this guy and ultimately spent quite a lot of money on him. And it wasn't necessarily a player, I think, in a position that they were desperate for at the time. But nonetheless, when he has played this season, I think he's looked sharp, and I think he is a player that Amorim likes. And yeah, I mean, it's good to see that he is injury-free. He needs that to continue, but he's tidy. He's a tidy player, and he works hard, and he creates, and he scores the odd goal. So I think it is important that he's fit again. And when I've seen him play this year, he's looked quite lively. That really doesn't concern me, that kind of area of the field for United. I'm not, you know, I kind and Robbo touched on it. They've got some good players there, and if they get the service to them, you know, I think ultimately, you know, they'll certainly cause teams more problems than they did last year. These kind of players don't really worry me. It's kind of the rest of this jigsaw that concerns me. And so, yeah, it's important having these players fit again, but you can only do so much. If the other part of the team is crumbling, then there's only so much the front line of this side can do. But yeah, it's good to see Mason Mount back fit. As again, I touched on Reece James, who's a very, very good player. And he just seemed to have injury after injury after injury. And it seemed that Mason Mount was having the same. And sometimes psychologically, and my God, Robbo and I can attest to this, having spent hours and hours on treatment tables and at different physios, it's soul destroying. And you go out and you're searching for the answer to these problems. And sometimes the more you search, the more difficult it is, and the more problems you get, because you're just trying. You can almost trying too hard, and you're going to this physio and that doctor, and you're trying this rehabilitation. And I don't think supporters understand really what, at times, maybe some do, but I really feel behind the scenes, this is the part of the game that the paying public, the supporters, they don't see it. They don't understand what players go through. That mental torture of wanting to be on the field to help your teammates and your manager, and having 20 minutes here and 10 minutes there and another 2 weeks on the treatment table. It's very tough for any player. So good to see Mason Mount back fit, and hopefully he's going to be an asset to this United side.
Absolutely. Let's take a look at the predictions from the panel then for this game ahead. Mark Ogden, 4-1 to Liverpool. What would a bad result like that mean for Amorim, Mark?
Well, it just means that the pressure gets cranked up again. I don't think this game, you know, decides Ruben Amorim's fate. I mean, Eric Ten Hag's have had a 7-0 at Anfield for a few more months, but it will kind of set the tone for what comes next. But I mean, the reason they've gone for 4-1 is because they've already conceded 3 at Man City this season. They conceded 3 at Brentford. And as Craig's been saying, that United midfield is just not equipped to deal with Anfield. It just isn't. You know, when Liverpool are good, they come at you in waves. And just the prospect of Casemiro on his own with Bruno Fernandes running all over the pitch, you know, waving his arms in the air, it's terrifying from a Man United perspective, because they're just not going to be able to keep Liverpool at bay. So I can see, you know, Liverpool pouring forward, getting a bit of joy, because Liverpool's confidence is low. But if they get an early goal and the fans get behind them, it will be an ordeal for Man United. And I just don't see how United can somehow keep Liverpool at bay. They just haven't got the legs, like Craig said. They haven't got the legs or the mobility in midfield. You know, Mason Mount is an interesting story at United because he's a very good player, very good technical player. But he's a player they didn't need. You know, he basically plays the same role that Bruno Fernandes wants to play when he's at his best. What they needed was a defensive midfielder who could run, keep the ball and move the ball, and Adam Wharton or Carlos Baleba, but they haven't gone for that. And this summer they had the opportunity to do it again, and they decided to sign 3 forwards instead. You could argue that they didn't really need Sesko. They could have maybe taken a chance on Højlund again this season, which is debatable. But the question is, would you be better with Højlund up front and a world-class centre midfielder, or Sesko up front and Casemiro in midfield? It's a toss of a coin. I think it would have been better signing a midfielder, and they would have gone to Anfield with such little chance of getting a result. So
Augie went back in the archives during International Week. That's a very clever move to find the quotes from Sir Jim Ratcliffe about Erik ten Hag being a very good coach and then sacking him 3 weeks later. But he didn't come out at that time with Ten Hag and say we're going to basically give him 3 years. Augie, that's an unbelievable statement to make, bearing in mind we have witnessed what we have witnessed with this manager, and then potentially having to renege on that is going to make you look even more clueless than you've shown yourself to be thus far.
Yeah, but he said that about Ten Hag having just given him a 2-year contract, so, you know, he's almost kind of given the same sort of commitment with Amorim. But, no, you're right. I mean, but what will happen is, as you know, that results will dictate it all, and if results are bad, if they lose at Liverpool, then they have got 3 very difficult games. You know, Brighton at home, Forest away, and Tottenham away. They're games that United lost last season, and Amorim's system, as we know, they're struggling with it right now. The players don't seem to buy into it. Everybody knows what United are going to do. I mean, preparing to face Man United must be the easiest job in the world right now if you're a Premier League manager, because you know exactly what they're going to do. So Amorim has to start getting some results. And it's all right, Jim Ratcliffe saying he needs 3 years in charge, but if they get to November, December, and they're 10th, 11th, 12th again, and they're going to miss out on Champions League or European football again, and also they're going to miss out on 10, 20 million pounds from, you know, finishing low down the Premier League. The prize money with every position is important. So Jim Ratcliffe is saying that right now, but I don't believe it for a minute. I think we get to November and it's the same situation. Amorim's in big danger.
Why would he say it though?
I don't know.
Well, why would you? If Sir Jim Ratcliffe had one of his lackeys, well, that's maybe a bit strong, you know, one of his employees, that Omar Barada or Jason Wilcox, and previously it was Dan Ashworth, if he had one of them coming out and making that statement, he'd probably pull them into the office and say, what the hell are you doing? You're just putting yourself under pressure. But for him to come out and say it, I mean, what's the point?
There's a lot about Sir Jim Ratcliffe and what he's had to say and how much he's had to say that I just don't understand. It mirrors Todd Bowley, especially in those first 2 years at Chelsea. He's just opening himself up for criticism, and if things go wrong, you look back on what he said, and Augie clearly willing to dive into the archives and kind of show how he contradicts himself. Now, so for me, I just don't understand this rule that Sir John Ratcliffe has, Jim Ratcliffe has adopted. It makes absolutely no sense. From a Manchester United perspective, you just feel like you can see what's going to happen here. And I predicted 2-1. I think if Liverpool would take 2-1 right now, if they get that scoreline and Mo Salah scores, Alexander Isak scores, Florian Wirtz, if he starts, has a good performance, they would take that right now. Oddly, so would Ruben Amorim. And you hear the same kind of post-game press conference that you heard after Arsenal to start the season. We've shown, though we've lost, we've shown that we can match it with the big boys in this league. Which is just as frustrating as anything that's coming out of that club right now. Given their struggles, given how poor you've been, kind of clinging to results, narrow losses as a positive, is right in Ruben Amorim's wheelhouse. And that, for me, is where I feel Manchester United have no real sense of accountability as to who they are, what their aspirations are, and it's from the head all the way go down to what you're seeing out on the park.
It's a good time to go to Anfield, though, isn't it? I mean, in terms of the points, they've got the points. They're just behind Arsenal. They're up there, but they haven't played well. Robbo touched on it. They haven't played well from the Community Shield, the Bournemouth game, the first game of the season, all the way through. They've been behind in a lot of games. They've been sort of losing or scoring late goals, which was good for them at some point, but hasn't continued. They've lost 3 straight games. They were ragged in Turkey against Galatasaray. They got completely outworked, outplayed, outthought by Chelsea, and that was not even Chelsea's strongest team. They had 10 injuries, but they got outfought in the mid and outplayed in the middle of the park. Chelsea pressed them. They couldn't handle it. You can get at this Liverpool team much more than you can get at them last year. They're not as effective going forward. So they have a lot of it. Liverpool, that is. They have I know United's issues are clear. Every Tom, Dick and Harry, they've been clear for a while. But Liverpool, and Oggy touched on finishing top 3, which they will. Of course they will. But you don't spend the money, you don't have the type of transfer summer they had to finish top 3. You have the kind of, you go out and you spend huge money on Isak, on Kerkez, on Florian Wirtz, on Frimpong and others to dominate English football, to do what Man City did for 5 years, to do what the old Man United side under Fergie and the Arsene Wenger side under Arsene Thames. It went out and it dominated English football, it dominated games. Liverpool spent money in the summer to do that. They spent money to take themselves to the next level. And that level may come. And they have very, very good players. But the sort of influx of these star players has caused, along with some injuries, to be fair, McAllister doesn't look fit, Gravenberg not quite the same, Konaté and Van Dijk not quite the same, Mo Salah, big contract, not quite the same, probably lazier than before, particularly if you watch the Chelsea game. Cucurella ran off him time and time again. That's something for other teams to look at, for your left back. And if you're the left wing back at Man United, you're saying, listen, when we get it, we've got to switch of play because Salah's not tracking back and they're weak in the right back area at the moment, Liverpool. And when he doesn't track back, a midfielder has to get out there. That's what happened against Chelsea. So there are all these things that you can get at Liverpool if United have enough about them. That is the big question. Every team in the Premier League, pretty much this year, has been able to get at this Liverpool team. The big question is, do Man United have enough about them to get at this weakened Liverpool defence? We're going to find out Sunday, obviously.
Absolutely. Final say goes to you, Robbo.
Well, I think Liverpool will win, but it's a big game for Arne Slot and his Liverpool players, and particularly the new players that have come into the team. Because when you're bought as big players, you've got to hit the ground running. You've got to start playing well. And Craig's absolutely right. These players were bought to take Liverpool to the next level so they could dominate English football for the next 3 or 4 years. At the moment, it doesn't look as though that's going to happen.
OK, well, keep up to date with everything that's going on in the world of football and the Gab and Jules show. The latest edition dropped this morning. Don Hutchison's back for a little more chat with Gab, and they'll be touching on everything that's coming up this weekend and what we've seen on international duty behind us.